There are things that you expect to change when you retire, like your schedule, your pace, your responsibilities. But there's other things that don't disappear loudly. They don't come with an announcement. They just kind of slowly go quiet. And you don't really notice them until you're living inside the silence. Today, I want to talk about 5 of those changes, the ones nobody really prepares you for, and why understanding them can make retirement feel a lot less confusing and, more importantly, a lot more peaceful. Welcome to the UnRetired, where you're not done, but you're finally doing what you want. If you like this kind of stuff, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really does help more people find the channel. All right, number 1, some friendships fade, and they do it without drama. One of the first things I noticed after retiring was that some friendships, they just kind of faded and went away. And it wasn't because anything happened, it wasn't any conflict, it wasn't because somebody did anything wrong. It just meant that life stages simply shifted for people. And most people were still working, raising kids, or living with a packed schedule with alarms and all kinds of calendars and stuff, but I wasn't. And retirement changed my pace in a way that was hard to explain until you're actually living it. Kind of like stepping out of a current that you've been swimming in for decades. You're still in the same river, but suddenly the flow around you has completely changed. It's actually stopped. And when your days open up while everybody else is still running around with all those ridiculous schedules and busy work and all of that, the overlap that kind of once kept our friendships alive and all those casual collisions that would happen in the course of those craziness, they kind of thin out. And what surprised me was learning that this isn't unusual at all. A research study from the National Library of Medicine on adult friendship shows that positive relationships, especially with your close friends, they're strongly linked to well-being, including emotional support, companionship, and a sense of belonging. But those benefits depend on interaction and shared time together, and not just your history or your intention to stay in touch. So when your daily rhythms change and those shared routines that you once had with multiple people, even your long-standing friendships, they can grow quiet without any kind of conflict or loss of care. It just kind of happens. So even your longest term friendships, the one you assume are permanent, they don't end. They just go quiet and they change. So what helped me was realizing that retirement isn't about clinging harder to old connections, or worse, blaming myself for the silence. It was about building new connections with people who live at the same rhythm that you do now. And that doesn't mean that you walk away from all those old friendships. It just means that you might find people that have a more similar rhythm to you. And of course, you do have to work to keep those old relationships. You're gonna have to do a little bit more work. Retirement doesn't mean losing your community. It just means creating a different one. The second thing was that career motivation goes silent. And that was kind of a surprising thing for me, was how quickly my motivation disappeared. I used to be like the guy who was like, go, 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 go. And I really thought that some of that drive and motivation would stick around, the drive, the interest, the spark. But once I stepped away from full-time work, I was shocked at how quiet it went almost immediately. And strangely, it didn't feel like a loss. That was also something that gave me a lot of clarity. It was like I didn't miss it. Like one day I was running on autopilot, the next day I suddenly realized I wasn't pushed to do anything at all. And then later I read an article about how retirement affects people's motivation and their sense of purpose. And it just confirmed something that I intuitively was feeling at the time. And that's that when people leave a structured career, they often lose the goals and external demands that once defined their drive, and which can create a sense of aimlessness before something new emerges. And that totally hit home for me, because it explained why at first I felt like the motivation just go and evaporated, not because I was lazy or bored or depressed, although I was a little depressed, but because I no longer had those external targets, even unrelated targets or indirect targets, that just kept steering me and pushing me along. So the motivation didn't disappear, it simply shed the parts that existed only because I was obligated. And now everything's changed. The things that move me now are chosen. They're creative projects, they're writing, they're coaching, this channel. These are all things that are new things that didn't exist before, but they give me purpose and meaning. And it's not because I have to, and it's not because somebody expects it. It's because I want to do it. I have a voice and I want to get out there and talk. Retirement didn't kill my motivation, but it removed my borrowed motivation and it revealed what was always sitting there underneath the surface. Number 3 is the structure that disappears. And frankly, that was unsettling. When you spent decades living by schedules, you got meetings, deadlines, commutes, you don't realize how much structure is quietly holding your days together. And again, I'm not even talking about like the ambition or the specific objectives of a job, just the fact that you are constantly in motion and going for something, it pulls in all these other things too. It's invisible while you're inside it. It's like a framework that you never had to think about. But then, one morning, it's gone. There's no calendar pulling me forward. There's no calls and voicemails calling me forward. There's no clock pressure telling me that I'm supposed to be somewhere next. And first, I gotta tell you, that openness can feel very disorienting, even uncomfortable. I went from checking my calendar and voicemail constantly to barely looking at it. And for a while, I thought something was wrong, like I was drifting or I should be doing something. In fact, it's pretty unsettling when you look at your personal calendar and there's literally nothing on it. It feels really weird. And then I read an article from Money Talks News, that described retirement as moving from a life of imposed structure into what they called an ocean of unscheduled time. And they compared it to an entropy, like the idea that is without structure. That's what an entropy is, the idea without structure. Things that naturally drift towards disorder until you intentionally create a new rhythm or a new structure. That hit home for me. That explains the mistake that I was making when I first retired, and that was I wasn't supposed to replace work structure with another version of work structure. I wasn't meant to recreate deadlines just to feel productive again. I was actually meant to build something lighter, something different. And that would create a rhythm that supported living and not productivity, not performance, just life. And with enough shape to feel grounded, enough space to feel free. I gotta tell you, it's a strange transition from being pulled through your days by obligation to gently steering them yourself with intention instead of urgency. The fourth thing was work-based ambition just softened. What I came to realize is that work was never just about a paycheck or the progress and the promotions. It was about having a place in the world, a reason to show up, a sense that I was still becoming somebody. And that's why when work ended for me, I felt something much bigger was missing. And even if you don't actually miss the job itself, it was really weird. There was a qualitative review that I read published in the Journal of Occupational Science that really explained it, that for many people nearing or living in retirement, work shifts in meaning. It stops being about achievement or income, and it's experienced more as a way of being, coming, and belonging. And needs that don't just disappear because the job title disappears. And those are things, like I said, being, becoming, and belonging. Those are things that we all need in our life. So the motivation I lost wasn't real motivation. It was borrowed structure, borrowed identity, borrowed urgency. Think about that for a second. And everything that your career catches you up in is borrowed structure, borrowed identity, borrowed urgency. And when that fell away, what was left was something quieter but more honest. And the kind of motivation that doesn't chase approval, the kind that doesn't need deadlines to exist. And that's the shift that retirement has to make, not from purpose to emptiness, but from the external purpose to a chosen internal meaning. Now, before we continue, if any of this feels familiar, if you've had moments where the retirement feels quieter, deeper, or more complicated than you expected, you're not alone. I share honest conversations like this every week about what life after 60 or even after 50, retire early, really looks like, but without the sugarcoating. If that's something you want more of, please consider liking and subscribing this video, and don't forget to turn on notifications, because that's how you know when we post our new content, which happens multiple times a week. The fifth thing was urgency and pressure. They dissolve. When you work full-time, everything feels urgent. And that's kind of just the structure of organizations and hierarchies and all that. Everything is always urgent. Everything's fast. You got emails, you got tasks, there's decisions, there's conversations. You're always rushing, even when nothing is actually on fire. That's just the nature of corporate world. Retirement changes that tempo completely. At first, the absence of urgency it actually feels a little bit suspicious. It's kind of like, not sure what to trust here. And it's like you forgot something. It's like you're supposed to be somewhere, but you're late. And then slowly it starts feeling a little bit normal. And that's when you notice something really uncomfortable. Most of the pressure you lived wasn't real at all. Let me say that again. That's like mind-blowing. Most of the pressure you felt for 40 years in a career wasn't real at all. It was actually invisible. It was self-imposed, and in some ways it was cultural to whatever organization you were in. The pressure to reply immediately, to stay productive, to perform responsibly instead of just simply living it. An old wealthy Chinese woman went viral when she still showed up every day to work as a dishwasher in a Bentley. Clearly, it was not because she needed the money. She said it's because she needed something to do. Think about that. She has a Bentley and she's going to work as a dishwasher. She needed that something to do. She needed that structure. She arrived in a luxury car, checked in, she washed dishes, and then she went home. She did not have any deadlines, no urgency, nothing. Just presence. She wanted to be there. And it just shows the urgency isn't the same as meaning, and speed isn't the same as importance. When the pressure fades, something else takes its place. Presence is just being there. You eat slower, you listen longer, you notice where you are, you're not reacting to life anymore, you're actually living in it again. Now, as we say in this channel regularly, retirement doesn't usually change your life all at once. It usually starts by softening the edges. First, your schedule loosens, and then your identity goes. And before you realize it, you're no longer defined by what you did, but you're not entirely sure who you're becoming yet either. And that quiet can feel both peaceful and unsettling, and sometimes both at the same time. And that's where the real work of retirement begins. That's your new job. Once you start noticing these quiet changes, it's really hard to unsee them. They don't just show up in spreadsheets or retirement calculators. Again, people measure way too much about retirement with a number. Instead, the real way it works is they show up in real life over time in terms of how you feel and how you think and how you move throughout your days. And that's why I wanted to go beyond the theory and planning and talk honestly about what retirement actually looked like once I was living it. So in this channel, I've got videos about everything, and I shared what those first 3 years of my retirement actually taught me, what surprised me in the best ways, and what challenged me more than ever. It is an adventure. As I always say, when you retire, you're not done, but you're doing what you want. And if you like this video, you're probably gonna like these videos as well.